Welcome to the first episode of the Healthy Fats podcast, where we uncover the remarkable stories of individuals who have harnessed the power of a primarily meat-based diet for root cause healing. I'm your host, Leon Gravesandy, and today we have a truly inspiring journey to share with you. Our guest, Terri Haas, is a shining example of the transformative potential of a carnivore diet. Before embarking on her carnivore journey, Terri faced a series of health challenges that left her searching for answers. Frustrated by conventional treatments and determined to regain her health, Terri made the bold decision to explore a primarily meat-based diet. In today's episode, Terri will take us on a deeply personal exploration of her health struggles, the pivotal moment that led her to the carnivore diet, and the incredible positive changes she experienced along the way. Her story is not only a testament to the healing power of meat, but also a source of inspiration for those who may be on their own health journeys. Join us as we dive into Terri Haas's remarkable story of healing with the carnivore diet and discover the lessons and insights she has to share with all of us. Terri, welcome to the show.
Nice to meet you, and thanks you so much for inviting me to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. So please tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
I am a 57-year-old single woman and looking. And I have been in really the low carb, high fat community is where I started in 2015. I had migraines for about 20 plus years, and I found a women's migraine support group on Facebook, and I joined that, and a woman in that group found another migraine type of group that has a protocol that I started on and found migraine relief, and that protocol was based on low carb, high fat. And so I got pretty immediate, actually overnight relief from my migraines following that protocol. And within about 6 or 8 months, the leader of that protocol first started to hear about keto and the ketogenic diet. And so she created a ketogenic group, and I segued over from low carb, high fat over to the ketogenic diet. And interestingly, this was before I'd ever heard of carnivore. But I essentially, when I moved over to keto, I didn't really move to traditional carnivore, but I followed what I now call like a hyper carnivore diet, which means, if you really looked at my food eating over a year, you would say that I'm 100% carnivore. But if you looked at it on a daily basis type thing or a monthly basis, I do include some plant foods here and there. I definitely do use spices, but I do every once in a while have some onion or garlic or tomato or something like that. Not much more than that. I've kind of dropped avocado. But literally the second that I heard that there was no need to ever eat plant foods again in my life, I was just like, I have found my way because I was one that never liked vegetables. I never really liked many fruits. I was also the girl that would be ordering a double bacon cheeseburger when my friends were getting, chicken salads at lunch. And so when I heard about carnivore, I actually did jump head first in and I probably was a strict carnivore, and my carnivore way of eating includes all meats, seafood, seaweed, eggs, mushrooms, and dairy, with the exception of lactose-free dairy, such as like yogurt, quark, and kefir. And I also don't include fermented dairy like yogurt in there as well. So all of that. So it's a pretty broad carnivore diet that I eat. And so I dove headfirst and dropped all the plants, and I was pretty strict for a couple of years. And then all of a sudden one day I think I wanted, a bite of avocado, so I had a little bit of avocado, and I don't eat them very much, plant foods, but occasionally they, they want to be eaten or whatever. I have a hankering for them. So I've been a carnivore, I guess, like a harder into carnivore since about 2016. different and unique, I think, in the way that I came about the carnivore space, carnivores, and and it's a crazy space over there. I've been in somewhat of a bubble over on Facebook. So that's where I was in the migraine group and the migraine brains, and we'll have those for life. And so since she's a PhD and she teaches doctors a lot of this stuff, it just kind of I don't even really remember the evolution of how it came about because I did not know it. And like I said, did not know any of those big, other doctors or social media influencers. And I honestly, I remember reading like, maybe some books on like the ketogenic living and those types of things, and maybe that just kind of led me to an article, and then I just kind of saw like, oh, there are other people that are actually not eating plant foods. Okay, so that's an actual thing, but there was still, I think, something in me that just says, hey, you can just eat animal foods, animal products. And so I just dove in head first. And at that time, I really didn't have any things that needed to be healed. I joined the migraine group. And when I joined the migraine group, I had gastritis and I had some anxiety, and I also had hypoglycemia, which I did not know. I didn't even have any feelings of it either. It wasn't until I kind of started doing time restricted eating when I moved over to the ketogenic carnivore type of diet, and I moved from like 3 meals a day to 2 meals a day, again in earnest, and then kind of going just with my eating window. I mean, I would start to get a little woozy. I'm like, what is this? And so I already knew, since I was already measuring my blood ketones and blood glucose, that I was a little low in my blood sugars. And so I moved my meals up, and all of that resolved fairly quickly, with the exception of the gastritis. And the gastritis continued actually up until just February of this year. So it continued despite me being on a carnivore diet. And it was very, not only perplexing, but maddening, because I mean, I got really super strict. I mean, for a couple of times I got really strict. I mean, I've never ever removed dairy or anything like that, but I have done trial runs where I thought, well, maybe it could be this, or maybe it could be pepper, or maybe it could be the, garlic seasoning I'm using or something like that. And
Right.
what it ended up being was the one and only medication that I was on, and I had been on for over 25 years, actually caused gastritis. So, I'm thinking that I probably got off very easily, and not as bad as I could have had I not been eating a carnivore diet, not having anything else to inflame or irritate my insides. So that was really the only things that I could think of that, if you were to ask me what I was looking for to heal with a carnivore way of eating, and if you had asked me at that time, I'd have said, oh, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm going to be just fine, because I did have lots of healing in my gastritis when I started it. And it felt significantly better. But then over time and things, stress, just whatever kind of irritates it, it would kind of act up. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not eating any plants. Stop doing that to me.
And let's see. So, how was like the transition to going to a low carb diet, like a carnivore diet? Did you kind of struggle with like keto flu, or how was that for you?
I did not struggle with any of that. So going back to like the migraine group and the keto, whatever, when this woman first started the keto group, her name is Dr. Angela Stanton, and she is my life savior among many others, thousands of others. She was just learning about the ketogenic diet and ketosis and all that kind of thing. And so when she and another admin and I were in that group and we first started, or whatever, we started measuring our blood sugar and blood ketones at the time. And I say this, and I'm going to say this very lightheartedly, and I don't want to get too deep into it because there's a lot involved in this, but I was in ketosis. And she didn't know much about ketosis. And this was actually a really funny story because we were measuring, and she and the other woman would be 0 or 0.1 or 0.2. And I'm like 0.5 and 0.6, but my sugar was like in the mid 70s. At the time, we didn't really know that was an insulin issue, but now I know that can signal insulin issues. But they kept, so then I would wake up or later on in the day, then my ketones would go to 0 or 0.2. And so Angela was freaking out. She's like, Terri, you've got to stay in or you've got to stay out. You've got to stay in. You can't go back and forth. And of course, I'm just going, I haven't done anything different. Like, I really haven't done anything different. I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do? And she says, you've got to choose in or out. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to choose out, like, and so I'm eating white bread and ice cream and potatoes and, all this stuff. Right. And so for like 3 weeks, I was doing this, 2 or 3 weeks, I would eat that. And then the next morning I wake up and I would be back to like 0.5, 0.6. She's like, oh, wow. You got to eat more. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do. And by 3 weeks eating that garbage, really after not really ever eating that much garbage of that in 3 weeks in my lifetime almost, I was starting to feel pretty icky. I was starting to feel foggy and just less than. So I finally just said to her, I said, Angela, I don't know what's going on, but I haven't really done anything different than what I was doing before. So I'm just going to take my chances and go back to eating the things that I really like to eat and that made me feel good. And then a few months later, then she learned all about it. She's like, oh, okay, this is how it works. You make ketones and you're using them and they reduce, or you're using them and they're at this level of ketosis, or you're at this level of, pre-ketosis, or you're not using them and they're backing up and they're, increasing. So, and that's why I say I don't know if I was actually in a safe or healthy mode of ketosis with the higher insulin and the lower blood sugar, but I was making ketones higher than they were at the time. So long story short, I had zero transition whatsoever. The thing that was missing for me to begin with was actually drinking the right amount of water and then adding salt to my diet. So I was completely salt-free with the exception of putting it on my French fries. And I was overhydrating by twice as much water as I need for my body weight. So I halved my water and I started adding salt, and I've never had a migraine since, and I've never gone through any keto flu or any transition period or anything like that.
That's good. And are you following like a kind of like time restricted feeding or intermittent fasting schedule now? Are you continuing that?
I do, yes. I remember even in high school, but I know I didn't eat breakfast every morning in high school. You try to eat breakfast because that's what you're supposed to do. And then you get to college and you hear more and more, well, back in the 80s anyway, you went to college and, you've got to fuel your fire, fuel that fire, feed that fire. It's going to burn out. And so you have to eat your breakfast and eat your snack and eat your lunch. And I just remember like dreading that because I'm like, I just don't want to eat, and forcing something down and then not being able to eat for hours later. And so, I was actually already naturally TRE, time restricted eating, when I joined that migraine group. I had been for years just because, like I said, I wasn't hungry. And I was going and working out, fasted already too, because again, I wasn't hungry. Right. So I have done some fasting. I think the longest I've fasted is 3 days. And that was really just to kind of see if I could reset like my immune system or my stomach, the stomach lining replaces itself after 2 days or something like that. So in trying to heal the gastritis, I was doing some fast, a 48-hour fast in there, and I would get some relief. But now I want to say I'm low in weight, but I'm pretty much at my ideal body weight, and I kind of play with losing a few pounds and gaining a few pounds. And so that's my ticket to say you don't really need to fast. Now, sometimes occasionally my body just says to fast. It'll be like, okay, I'm not hungry at all. What's going on here? Let me kind of take stock. And so I'll just say, I feel good, but I'm just not hungry. So I just won't eat because if I'm not hungry, there's no reason to eat. And sometimes I'll notice maybe the next day I feel a little lethargic or a little tired, and maybe that my body was fighting a bug and that's why it didn't eat, and then I'll be over it or something, So, but purposely fasting, I don't do that on purpose, no.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people, they don't realize that when you fast, you're actually doing some healing with your gut, So,
yeah. This is true. And that in that catabolic state, there's lots of healing going on. That's exactly why the fasting works.
Mm-hmm. And how long have you been, so you're a metabolic health coach, like for someone who may not know what a metabolic health coach is, can you describe that for us?
A metabolic health coach is somebody that helps someone heal from their metabolic health issues. And I know that's a very loaded word and a very big sounding word, but instead of saying the whole panacea of like I help somebody with PCOS and insulin resistance and diabetes and autoimmune conditions and that or whatnot, it's just a catch-all word that all of those conditions fall under. So if you know you have a metabolic health condition, then that would be, I would be someone that you would seek. And I've been doing this since about 2018, I think.
Okay. And I saw you're part of Nutrition Hackers.
I am, yes. I'm also recently, that was something that just recently was created, and I'm also a coach through them as well.
Okay. And let's see here. Okay. So what would you say are like the biggest benefits of maybe doing a carnivore diet over, maybe something else? Like what are the biggest positive changes for that?
Well, I'm going to be extremely biased because you're talking to someone, that didn't really like fruits and vegetables.
Okay.
So for me, I mean, I would just go, well, gosh, I just didn't want to eat plants. So why, why do you? Um,
Yeah.
but I guess I know that clients and members of the migraine group that come in and just even anyone on social media and those types of questions like why all meat and what is the purpose of that, and aren't you afraid of that, and what is it, like you said, what does it heal, and just outside of my own self, now I have this broad group of almost 16,000 members in that migraine group now that I have seen heal from remarkable illnesses, from chronic illnesses, and in relatively short time. And it's something that you can't deny. And it's not anything I'm making up. It's not anything I'm reading into. These people are there of their own free will, of their own free choice. They do not have to follow anything that is written in that protocol. And a lot of them go, not uncommonly, kicking and screaming towards it. It is not required to be carnivore to follow that protocol or anything, but you do heal quicker from migraines. And migraineurs are glucose intolerant due to our genetics. That's just part of having a migraine brain. And so when members realize, and when I can get other people, because it's not just migraineurs that are sensitive to glucose at this stage of the game. We all are running around with some level of insulin, some degree of insulin resistance. And so when you can explain the role of plant foods and exogenous glucose in the way that the body works, and in the way that insulin works, and in the way the body responds to that, and they can see and feel that real time, like in a hypoglycemic event or measuring their blood sugar and their blood ketones, then it's very easy to convince them. I don't even have to convince them. Then they can see it for themselves. It's a learning opportunity for themselves. So, and I will also say that if you're coming to me, or if you're in the migraine group, of which I'm an admin, I feel like you've probably already done a lot of research. You've already tried other things, because carnivore still at this stage of the game seems to be very extreme and something that not a lot of people know of or are aware of yet. And so my thoughts are that you've already been experiencing a lot of pain. You've already tried a lot of modalities. And so now you're like, I guess I'm going to try this really extreme diet of meat only. And I mean, that when you say it like that, even myself who loves meat, that sound it makes my mouth go bleh, and I don't know why that is. And that's my own work that I have to do, but I can understand others feeling that same way, especially when you come from this colorful array of your plate and your menu and that sort of thing, to eating carnivore is extremely bland. I mean, you get pink, brown, and white, right? And so basically is what you got in there. And a little bit of yellow, I guess, too, with butter, right? So, and so, yeah, and then people say they like their fruits and they like their vegetables, and then it can be a journey for some people, and I think that the journey just includes them feeling better and feeling better, and that just inclines them and motivates them to change further. And I really think that it is something that once one starts, you will feel some type of benefit in a short amount of time that you will then be amazed and surprised and maybe curious to continue to see what else it can do for you.
How long did you kind of have the migraines? Like, how long, when did that start? And
I started with my first migraine after the birth of my third child at 28. I know that there's people start when they're younger, people start when they're older. I know that when I would drink, and it didn't have to be, it could be like one drink or it could be 5 drinks. It didn't really matter. I would get pretty hellacious hangovers and typically vomit. And I know, yeah, and I know now after having migraine that those hangovers were probably more migraine related than not migraine related, because they were pretty awful and they're pretty comparable to a migraine, but a migraine is worse. Let me just put it that way. It lasts longer. A hangover can last a day, but migraines can last 4 days, week, chronic for 4 months.
that's something I never really had any issues with, was migraines, even when I was eating the standard American diet or very high carb. But my wife actually complains sometimes about migraines, so maybe it's something I should try to see.
Yeah, join the group and we can help her out. And I mean, it's for a lot of people, it's something that they find really quick relief from. And then you have some that it just depends on your history and your willingness to, jump in and make changes really too.
Yeah. And how did like your family and friends, when did you ever kind of let them know that you're doing this carnivore diet, and how did they think about that? Or have you influenced anyone to give it a try for healing?
Well, so when I first started the low carb, high fat protocol and then moved to keto, my parents were doing it. And my parents, they had a good time, and I was even a couple times whenever I'd visit them, whatever, when they were out of the state, I would bring my blood sugar and ketone monitor and I would measure them, and they were in ketosis as well. And then I think without having any direction and in all honesty, I think what happened, and this can happen to a lot of people as well, when they start a ketogenic diet, and now knowing what I know, learning along the way about a ketogenic diet, that a ketogenic diet really is not a sustainable diet and really isn't a type of way of eating for the majority of people. It's really geared towards those that have epilepsy, brain injuries, cancer and stuff, and really for people that should not have any glucose, exogenous glucose at all, or minimal amounts that their body makes just from the foods that they eat in their brains, because they really need to have all the ketones. So it's kind of almost a travesty to have this ketogenic diet, and I'm talking the true one, not the fad, which I actually call modified standard American diet, because all you've done is switch from real sugar to, sugar alcohols, and you've switched from flour to coconut and almond flours, and that is not a ketogenic diet. Okay. That is a fad ketogenic diet. But a true ketogenic one, which is one that I was trying to follow when I first started, and it's the one that I got my parents to follow to it. And I think, like many people, you feel great. It's euphoric. You're running on ketones and you have all this energy. And then you get to a point where something doesn't seem to work anymore. And that's what happened with my parents. And so they didn't like it, and they were losing energy, and they didn't feel good anymore. So they have since transitioned back to standard American diet. Mm-hmm. I have 3 children, and my youngest daughter, she did the keto diet for a bit, and she she TREs herself. And my second child, he's a boy, man, I should say. He also does the ketogenic diet and also cycles through carnivore too, and he does fasting and time restricted eating. And I don't think I've gotten any friends to segue over. I don't think so. I do have a granddaughter, and when she's over here, I feed her as carnivore as I can. She's a little bit more hyper carnivore, and now she's almost 3, so she's been introduced to a lot more standard American diet foods. And so I keep some foods here that I don't eat for her, and I will get some other plant foods for her, fresh fruits and stuff like that for her to eat.
Mm.
But no, so far I haven't converted, not to the best of my knowledge, I haven't converted anyone yet.
So what is hypercarnivore?
Hypercarnivore. So I believe, I don't know if Angela, the migraine creator, coined that term or not, but so I know that there's like all sorts of terms. There's like keto carnivore, keto this, that, the other. So hypercarnivore is kind of what I was describing earlier, where you would maybe have a couple of grams of plant foods
Mm-hmm.
in a meal, and not every day and not every meal. So like half an avocado with this meal, or some onion with this burger, that type of thing. So just a nominal amount of plant foods here and there. It can be difficult, though, again, navigating the carnivore space, because unless you've got like stable insulin and you have some metabolic flexibility to be able to segue or go in between ways of eating. And when I say that, what I mean by that is one of them is going to be you eating plant foods, and one of them is going to be not eating plant foods. And there's two different types of gut flora and all sorts of things that kind of go in mixing those two. And if you don't have this metabolic flexibility or stable insulin, if you're not eating enough carbohydrates, plant foods, to support your fuel needs, since you might still be a glucose burner, you're going to have this keto flu or this type of carnivore flu, or feel less than, not have the energy that you need. So you can kind of be in this in between. When you add just a small amount of plant foods in. So you're at this keto level territory of carbohydrates, but you're not yet ready for keto level, I should say keto level ketones is what I should say, since you're still mainly a glucose burner. So people can get into trouble there. So hypercarnivore would be something that I would recommend after you've gone through carnivore and had some healing of your insulin, rather than going from a low carb, high fat or standard American diet to a hypercarnivore diet. There could be some insulin and energy trouble for yourself if you're kind of in between there before you've had some healing.
I think Dr. Berry kind of calls it ketovore.
Yeah, that's another term. Yeah, so being in this bubble, I'm just not familiar with all those terms, and so I'm like trying to Google it. It's not very easy to Google those terms either. So
Yeah, no, it's okay. Yeah, that's basically called that. I usually sometimes get into, I mean, I've been in nutritional ketosis, but it's not something I stay in for very long. Just depends how long I fast for. So I've done at least 62 hours this year. So,
oh
I
wow.
mean, then I was in nutritional ketosis, but and then I'll usually break the fast with, some bone broth, and kind of start off something light and stuff. So,
I know my very first 72-hour fast, I love duck. And so I actually made a duck and some duck bone broth to break my first 3-day fast. I had a couple of other girlfriends. We were doing it together. And it's very easy to TRE. If you don't eat 18 hours, 24 hours, it's very easy. But when you plan a fast, the handful that I've planned a fast maybe 3 times, and this is my first planned fast. That first day, 18 hours in, I was dying. I was like, I am so hungry. This is ridiculous. And so anyway, the 3 days was up, and I go and I'm so excited to drink this duck bone broth. I'd never had duck bone broth in my life also. So I have my duck bone broth, because you have to refeed slowly, right?
right.
Oh, let me just say, please, people, do not ever refeed with duck bone broth. It is extremely high in fat. That's all I'm going to say about that. So I was the bathroom and I were friends for quite a while that evening after I broke my fast.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of those trials and tribulations of the carnivore diet, when you eat too high fat when your body's not quite ready for it.
I guess I would say I'm, what is it, metabolically flexible, because, yeah. What about you? Like, would you kind of call yourself that? Do you think you're at that point?
Yeah, yes, I believe I am. Yes, I can, since I can eat those small amount of plant foods and feel fine after that. And Admittedly, if you were to find me some days in the summer, you might find some cherries and watermelon in my refrigerator. I don't eat a lot of them, but every once in a while I'll crave it, and so I eat them and figure, okay, I'm just gonna rank up my insulin here and see if I've still got it, test it out. And then, but I seem to be quite fine. I mean, even eating those cherries and the watermelon and stuff, like I'll eat 9 cherries and I don't count them out. That's just by 9, I'm full, I've had enough, and I'm sweet enough, after that.
Yeah.
And so I'm still in, I mean, you segue in and out of ketosis. You can't always be in ketosis because we have to be anabolic, certainly. So, but yes,
Yeah.
I find that I am metabolically stable at this point.
And if I have too much protein, that usually will kick me out. I mean, I'm pretty much 2 meals a day, but it's very hard for me to even eat 2 meals and be almost zero carb. It's very hard for me to even stay in like a low ketosis. Maybe if I do like 18 and 20 hours every day, I could probably do that. But yeah.
Well, when you eat protein, though, when you eat protein, it does, if you've eaten enough protein to reach what is, the leucine threshold, and the leucine threshold is a personal number for each individual. That's what allows for protein synthesis when you reach your leucine threshold. And when you reach protein synthesis, you are actually taken out of ketosis because it's that action, that anabolic action that takes you out of ketosis. So you are building up, then you're repairing. And so during those hours or however long you're personally in ketosis, and that is also a very personal individual thing based on your insulin health. So you want to be taken out of ketosis because you want to reach your you want to be in protein synthesis because that's where the healing of the mitochondria and the cells all takes place. That's where the repair and the building. Protein synthesis is not just about building muscle. It's actually the entire scaffolding of our bodies. So I mean, it could take someone time to even build muscle. If they're not metabolically healthy and have had, that type of issues in the past, whatever, but it can take someone time to even get to the point to build muscle after, eating enough protein. So it's not like you eat protein. I mean, you eat protein just to build muscle. It literally builds and repairs the entire body.
Okay. And what are you eating? Like, can you just kind of describe what you're eating daily? Does it kind of change or pretty much the same?
It does. When I first started, I remember I never have really liked other types of meat already. I mean, I've always been a beef lover my entire life. I'm not much of a chicken lover. Pork was just bacon, maybe a pork tenderloin. And then when I started carnivore, it was just ribeye, ribeye, ribeye. And that lasted for about a year. I think I was eating 2 and 3 ribeyes a day. It was just like, whatever I want to eat, I'm going to eat. And then milk, and ribeyes and milk and butter. And then about a year in, I don't know what happened, but ribeyes just made me sick. And so I started eating, and I actually ate this meal almost every day for 4 years. And I've just started branching out like the last 2 years. And I named him because I am single, and I figured might as well make it look like, I'm having a lot of fun with Pierre. And my Pierre meal is a beef tenderloin, a little filet tenderloin, not so little, it's about a half a pound. And I serve it with a side of sauteed in ghee mushrooms. And I top that with a little bit of Gruyere cheese, and then I drink half and half. So I no longer drink milk. I have graduated to half and half because of fat. And then for my second meal, it just depends because sometimes my first meal, depending on how big the steak is, because it can range anywhere from 200 to 300 grams, and that is anywhere from like 12 to 1600 calories, kind of depending. And I usually eat around 2000, 2100 calories a day. So my first meal, I just eat until I'm full, until I can't take another bite. And then if like in a couple of hours I'm not hungry again, what I'll go do then is gonna go track and look at my chronometer to see like how many calories was that? Because I should be getting hungry now. And I'm like, okay, well that was 1,600 calories. Okay, that makes sense. So then I'll kind of look at the time and it's like, okay, it's 7:30. You need to eat a few more calories, to get in before you get to bed because I'm trying to maintain my weight. The snack will just kind of bump up the protein synthesis as it would, or kind of bump up. And that's going to be like, one of my recipes that I've created is called Carnivore Crumbles. And so I'll have that either plain with some heavy whipping cream, like a bowl of cereal, or maybe I'll add some fruit to it, or maybe I'll just make a charcuterie plate. Or if it's been just like a 1,000-calorie meal, then I'll have like a bacon, 2 bacon-wrapped hot dogs fried in tallow, or I will decide that it's time to share another recipe. So I'll think of a meal and video that and just do something that I don't normally eat. But if it was just me and I was not creating recipes and wanting to share some fun, creative things to eat besides just meat, my meals are pretty boring and easy. It's just too easy to cook this way. And I cube up egg, toss it in my deep fryer, and 90 seconds later I'm eating. Or I stick something in my Dutch oven or in the oven, and 4 minutes later I'm eating, and it's beef 99% of the time. Boring but tasty.
And you post your recipes on YouTube. What's the
I do. My YouTube channel, it's dedicated more or less to my carnivore recipes, carnivore treats. Although I have pushed the envelope on 2 of the recipes. One of them is a lemon poppy seed bread, and I have a lemon there, and so I still call it carnivore. And then the other one really isn't carnivore because there's pumpkin in it, but I went ahead and put it anyway, just telling people with the caveat that, you know what, here is something to choose that will keep you as close to carnivore as you can be, and also enjoy a treat if you'd like and not feel so alone or outside if you're at a party or holiday gathering or something like that. So, and that's my, and on my Facebook and TikTok and Instagram are just any and all of my recipes, but they are all low carb, high fat, and they are all added sweetener, grain, nut, starch, and seed oil free recipes.
Okay. What do you think about this recent craze with people eating sticks of butter?
It's funny because first of all, I know snacking, going back to what we were saying earlier about snacking. So if you're snacking, then that food that you're snacking on outside of a meal is going to be used as glucose, since you're not eating protein and you're not eating enough leucine to meet your protein, meet your leucine needs to reach protein synthesis. So that will turn to glucose. But that being said, when I first started, and I didn't know any of that information, but I also knew I wanted to stay on track. What I did was I actually took heavy whipping cream shots. So, I mean, I have the little thing, and you put the air in it or whatever. And I'd be like, I'm hungry and I want a piece of cake. What should I do? And so I would just, fill my mouth with heavy whipping cream that I whipped with no sugar, just plain. Right. And then, after time, that just literally went by the wayside. As a matter of fact, that memory just came up on my Facebook feed the other day from 2018. And it was like, if you're not taking heavy whipping shots, are you even carnivore? I think I wrote something like that. And I had a lot of kind of feedback. They're like, do you still do that? I'm like, well, no, because I know better now. But I also said to this person that commented, I said, no, this would not be something that I do now, but it would still be something that I would recommend somebody to do if you feel like you're going to eat off plan. Because if you're going to be eating sugar, if it's sugar or a heavy whipping cream shot, I'm going to tell you to have the heavy whipping cream shot because that's going to keep you on plan and make you feel better. But my real true advice to you would be, like, really honestly, if you're hungry, that means you need to eat a meal, and that would be eating a meal that meets, all your carnivore needs and enough protein. But I mean, so essentially, I was eating butter. It just was pre-butter, right?
Yeah.
So when I see these people eating butter, it gags me because I was never one to eat butter. I actually literally sit there and go, wouldn't you rather just guzzle down some heavy whipping cream? Because that's so much tastier and goes down so much easier. But, to each their own.
And Can you kind of, I saw that reel that you did about lettuce.
Oh no, not the one with the t-shirt?
Yeah, the one with the t-shirt.
Oh,
So
okay.
how did you decide to kind of come up with that, or
Oh
because
my gosh, you got me blushing. Okay, so
uh
I'm gonna go ahead and be 100% honest here. I got that t-shirt specifically to do that reel. And I got that t-shirt 6 weeks before I got up the guts to do that reel. And my reasons for doing that were a couple fold. And I am 57 years old and I look pretty good for 57, and I wanted to kind of advertise how I look. I don't
hmm
really go to the gym. Actually, I don't go to the gym, so let me just go ahead and do that. I do walk a couple miles each day. I live in Houston, it's flat, so there's no hills. But I just kind of wanted to showcase that this is how I look at 57 eating a carnivore diet. Um, and so a little bit of, you know, what's the word? Provocative, I guess. I
hmm
don't, I think that's the second time I've used sex in anything that I have put on in any of my social media stuff. So I was a little hesitant with that regard because that's not the way that I want to present my page. But I thought, go ahead and get a little kicks or whatever, and maybe also to timeline what I looked at like at 57, and then also to kind of just be again a little provocative with the t-shirt.
right.
And just kind of just my way of saying to plant foods. No,
That's
you can keep it. I appreciate it. But I mean, just because my parents aren't too happy with it. And I'm like, I'm 57 and single, like, and it's a bathing suit bottom. I didn't show anything that, like it was a very conservative bathing suit bottom too.
yeah. It's like, if I tried that, I don't know. I don't know if I would get followers or lose followers. And I mean, do you find are there any negatives you think to doing a carnivore diet, all primarily
You
meat
know,
based?
um, there are some negatives, and I think the biggest negative, which really does impact me, even though it shouldn't, but it does, and is just possibly the worry and the concern and the downright incredulity of people of what I eat. And then not having any of that when I was, having migraine chronic for 4 months. I was actually 60 pounds overweight, but this was way back when, over 30 years ago, and I lost that weight way back then. So I can't use that as a term for right now, but, and nobody knew that I had hypoglycemia or any of those gastritis problems. I mean, I had my gallbladder out, and we know now that as a byproduct of the standard American diet. So that would be people's attitudes towards my eating would be a negative. And most of the time, it doesn't bother me. But I have family members that voice valid to them concern over this. And that's difficult to navigate because I don't talk to them about what they eat. And so I just say to them, let's just leave this off the table. I appreciate your concern. I have the same concerns for you. And I understand that you're not going to change me and I'm not going to change you. So let's just enjoy our meal and love each other. And that's just what and then the second thing that I can think of that's negative, and again, I'm just going to be completely honest, even after eating this way for almost 8 years now, I do get bored occasionally. Sometimes I just wish that I could open a bag of chips or have a bowl of cereal because I either don't want to cook anything or I don't have any. I mean, there's not really any excuses because with an air fryer, you can have a steak ready in 10 minutes. So there's really no excuses other than the fact that I just want to grab a bowl of cereal and sit on the couch and watch TV like the old days, Not my carnivore crumbles either, just cereal. And I mean, there's been some whiny times where you're like, God dang it, I just want a bowl of cereal. I want a bowl of popcorn. And then you just get over it because it's like, that's not the way I eat. I don't have those things here to support that anyway. And if I did, I probably wouldn't eat it anyway.
Yeah.
So those would probably be the two negative things. And then along with the first one, sometimes it can be difficult to eat out. But since COVID and kind of the world has changed since then, and then also that gave myself a deeper dive into eating carnivore, which eliminated anything, that that wasn't carnivore by eating out, because you can inadvertently get seed oils and all those things, right? So now I hate to say extremely sensitive, but those things taste terrible. When you go to eat them now, if I go out to eat, the food tastes terrible because it's not cooked in butter and it's not cooked in this and it's not cooked in that. So while I can say, going out to eat might be a negative, I don't think really in the grand scheme of things it's all that negative because I can pick where I want to go. I don't have to go, and eating out is expensive nowadays anyway. So
Yeah.
save me some pennies.
And what is your favorite like cooking fat? Is it butter or something else?
You know what? My favorite cooking fat, that's a tough one. Like I use beef tallow the most because that's what I've got in my deep fryer. And I probably use my deep fryer probably 5 times a week. There was a time I was deep fat frying every meal for about 2 months. When I first started deep fat frying, everything went in the deep fat fryer. And I will say, just so y'all know, do not put a filet tenderloin in the deep fat fryer. I have taken one for the team. It was terrible. I cried because I ruined a filet and they're expensive. So don't do that. But I mean, I put bacon wrapped hot dogs and I put lamb cubes and I put, bacon, ribeye cubes. Today, for the first time ever, I tried out, and I'll have a reel on it later, is top sirloin. I'm like, I wonder if top sirloin would be good in there. Fabulous.
That's great. And are there any additional like health goals? Just kind of with the carnivore diet, anything else you're kind of trying to do or achieve?
Not anything that I'm trying to do or achieve, no, but after 8 years of doing this, what I am noticing, and this, I see this very commonly with other people too, that I'm having, like I've had a few little tiny skin tags, and those fell off a couple of years ago, but I've gotten just some skin. I don't even know what they are, but growths, I suppose, like just like raised something, that those are all fading away. Even some moles have fallen off. I even took there was something on my back that was itching one day, and I thought, this is crazy. And so as I was itching it, it just felt weird. A whole mole came off of my finger, and I'm like, this, and I took pictures and I was going to post it. This was early on when I first started on Instagram, and I thought, you're not going to get one single follower if you post that nasty thing. So maybe in a year I'll follow, when I get more followers and it's more apropos. But I've seen a bunch of people, like, one guy show how he had a freckle on the top of his head, and he keeps his head shaved, and like, a couple of years later it's gone. And I'm noticing the exact same thing. Just my skin is more glowing, and so I'll take all of these. It feels like eating carnivore is the fountain of youth. Just like I'm age reversing, and I just have more energy, and just feel youthful. I feel better than I did when I first started. That's for sure.
Right. So, using the carnivore diet, you basically kind of gotten rid of your migraines, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have more energy and you're feeling a lot better.
Yes.
Great. And is there any advice you have for the viewers? Like any final words you'd like to share with them?
If you are interested in starting a carnivore diet, I had 3 tips, and I always forget the third one. But the first one is enjoy all of the meats. Because like I said earlier, when I pigged out on bacon initially at first. And because what will happen, and I see this across the board in the carnivore community, your desire and like for all meats will lessen and shrink over time, the longer that you are eating carnivore. Let's see, I don't think I can remember 2 or 3 right now either. And that I'll go ahead and segue over to that just for a moment too, just to say that the reason I started the carnivore, my YouTube channel over there with the carnivore treats, was to kind of deal with the second negative aspect of eating carnivore, and that's when you get bored or you have meat aversion, where you just are like, I just do not want to eat meat. What can I do? And so all of my recipes would be something that you could eat instead of, or like maybe have a smaller portion of meat. I know with my clients I work with that come from a plant-based way of eating or don't eat a large portion of meat in their meals. I say, well, how does a cheeseburger and vanilla milkshake sound? And they say, well, that sounds kind of good. And so I have a carnivore milkshake recipe that I've created, and that's got whey protein powder in there. So right already you've got a great amount of leucine in just that. Nice, fat, juicy cheeseburger, and that'll go down in a few bites, and you drink your vanilla milkshake, and there's a meal that doesn't really feel like it was really meat. So
Right.
that my reason and my mission to create my YouTube channel and the recipes was to bring approachability, sustainability, fun, and adventure to a carnivore way of eating. So it's to show to people that it isn't always about meat, and that you can have fun eating this way, and we don't miss out on anything. I've got ice cream cakes and bacon ice cream sandwiches and bread, pizza crusts, pie crusts that are all carnivore. So yeah, I mean, really good stuff.
Yeah, if I like to cook, I would probably do a lot of
Well,
that.
and I will just say that they're also
Or
very
bake.
easy because they're along the lines of carnivore. Because again, it's a lazy way of eating for the most part. But yes, there are more steps involved with making my treats than just a regular carnivore meal.
Yeah, that's great. No, it's good that you have variety because sometimes, you do need that, right? Just to kind of
Yes.
mix it up.
And so coming from, I know that a lot of people think that eating carnivore is a weight loss way of eating. And carnivore is not a weight loss way of eating. Carnivore is an evolutionary elimination healing way of eating. So it is to heal the damage from eating plant foods and standard American diet and processed foods and that sort of thing. Along the way, people can lose weight and people can gain weight. It really depends on what your body decides to heal at what part of the stage that you're in. So there's a larger community in the carnivore community that does use it to lose weight. And
Mhm.
for those people, it wouldn't be such a big deal if you were to skip a meal or eat less than you need at a meal. But for coming from my point of view and my perspective as somebody that can't really afford to lose any weight, to just tell us to skip a meal or fast is not very good advice. So that's where I came in with my treats. It's like, well, if I have to eat something, or I can't eat something, but I need to eat something, then this will be better than nothing, because
Mm.
not eating when you need to eat or whatever and you're smaller, doesn't feel so great until you're
That's
insulin stable.
all right. It's like with me, I think like I have my body set weight because it really doesn't fluctuate much.
Yep.
So it's always kind of around a certain average. So, and
I'm the same weight as I was in high school, like give or take 2 pounds. It's
yeah,
ridiculous.
that's me too. Once I got healthy, I was pretty much around that weight.
Crazy.
Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your story with us and the
Thank you,
insights.
Leon.
Yeah,
I
I
appreciate you
appreciate
having
it.
me.
You're welcome. And if you enjoyed watching this episode, please go ahead and give us a review. And it's going to be posted on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. And I have to see where else I'm going to put it. But,
Okay.
if you enjoyed watching this video, please go ahead and give us a like and a review or any feedback. And thanks for tuning in. And that's it. Have a great day.